This is Chapter by Chapter Classics, the short-form classic literature podcast, where each episode walks you through a few chapters of a great book. We're reading Frankenstein, using both the 1818 original edition and the 1831 revised text, so you're covered no matter which copy is in front of you. Previously in Frankenstein, we followed Robert Walton's Arctic letters as he chased glory at the North Pole, only to rescue a mysterious, half-frozen stranger, Victor Frankenstein, whose tragic story he now begins to record. Today, we're in chapters 1 through 4, where Victor looks back on his childhood in Geneva, his bond with Elizabeth and Henry, and the strange scientific books that spark his dangerous curiosity. In this section, the two editions make one especially important change to Elizabeth's background, and we'll flag that clearly when we reach it so you can see how it affects the family story.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open one of the most famous foundational texts of science fiction and horror, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
And we are really going back to the source material here, looking at both the original 1818 text and the revised 1831 edition.
You want to get past all the movie myths and really understand the origin story of Victor Frankenstein.
Exactly. Our mission today is to give you a really solid overview of his life just leading up to the creation. We're focusing only on chapters 1 through 4.
This is the time before everything goes wrong, right?
Yeah.
Where we can see the seeds of his ambition and his curiosity.
Yes, and we can also see how his family life shapes everything that comes after. By comparing the two editions, we get a much more nuanced view.
We really need to understand the man before he becomes the creator. So let's just dive in, starting with chapter 1, the foundations of the Frankenstein family.
Okay, so Victor comes from a very distinguished Genovese family. His ancestors were syndics, counselors. Basically, they were important people.
A background rooted in public service and duty. But the real key to his upbringing is his father, Alphonse, and specifically how he came to be married.
That marriage is the moral blueprint for Victor's whole life. I mean, it's everything. Alphonse married a woman named Caroline Beaufort.
She was the daughter of his best friend who had fallen into just abject poverty.
Right, and the text really emphasizes her courage. She was supporting her sick father by doing plain work and plaited straw for, a pittance.
So Alphonse steps in as her protector, her rescuer, and then 2 years later, he marries her.
And this sets up this incredibly powerful narrative of compassionate domestic love. It's the core value of the Frankenstein household.
Their main duty, they say, is the well-being of their children. So Victor grows up in this bubble of affection.
A total bubble,
Yeah.
which makes it all the more jarring when he later just completely isolates himself.
And that family bubble almost immediately includes Elizabeth Lavenza. She's his intended wife, his more-than sister.
This is such a central relationship, and it's actually one of the first places we see a really significant difference between the two editions of the book.
Okay, let's talk about that, because the way she's introduced really changes how you read Victor's attitude towards her, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So in the 1818 original, how does it happen?
In that first version, his mother finds Elizabeth in Italy, and she just claims her. She tells Victor, I have a pretty present for my Victor.
A present?
Yes, a present. She literally says, this child is yours. She is to be yours as she is my gift.
So she's not just a future wife. She is a possession, a gift given to him by his mother to sort of control.
And the 1831 revision, how does Shelley change that?
The change is subtle, but it's important. In the revision, Elizabeth is an adopted orphan, and her parents were a Milanese noble and a German woman. It really emphasizes Caroline's benevolence, her role as a protecting spirit.
But the outcome for Victor is pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah. The effect is identical. He still sees her as his property, his destiny. He even says he loves to tend to her, as I should, on a favorite animal.
Wow. So whether she's a cousin or an orphan, she's basically assigned to him. She's a symbol of that domestic love he's supposed to value above all else.
And in trying to cement that family virtue, his mother kind of inadvertently teaches him this very possessive form of love.
That possessiveness is a great transition into chapter 2, because that's where his intellectual life starts. And it doesn't start with modern science.
Not at all. It starts with the esoteric, the occult. He basically dismisses modern science as dealing in realities of little worth.
So what's he reading?
He's deep into Cornelius Agrippa, Paracelsus, Albertus Magnus. He's chasing the big ancient dreams, the philosopher's stone, the elixir of life.
He's looking for glory then, not, useful knowledge.
It's all about boundless grandeur. He thinks modern scientists are just tyros amateurs compared to these old masters. He wants power.
And that desire for power for glory is the starting point for everything. Then, when he's 15, something happens that completely reroutes him. A literal spark.
Yeah, the thunderstorm. He sees lightning just obliterate this magnificent old oak tree.
And it's not a small event. The tree is reduced to nothing but thin ribbons of wood. It's this incredible act of violent decreation.
And right after, a visitor, a natural philosopher, explains the modern science behind it. Electricity, galvanism.
And that scientific explanation just completely deflates all the magic he found in his old books.
It does, and he gets so angry about it, so dismissive, that he rejects natural philosophy entirely and decides to just study mathematics.
Really does sound like a massive teenage tantrum. If I can't be a glorious alchemist, I'll just do math instead.
That's a pretty good way to put it. But this moment is so critical that Shelley actually revisits it in the 1831 revision. This is another place where the two editions give us a different lens.
Okay, so let's break that down. How does she change his perception of that moment?
In the 1831 text, when Victor looks back, he frames it as a moment where destiny was too potent.
Ah, so it's not his fault.
Exactly. He says his turn away from science was an angel of destruction pushing him, that his utter and terrible destruction was decreed by fate.
So he's blaming fate to kind of, soften his own role in his downfall.
I think so. Whereas the 1818 text focuses more on his own caprice, his own choices. It's a huge difference, Is he fated to fall, or does he choose it?
Either way, that rejection of science doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't. And that failure to stay away really sets the stage for Chapter 3 when he has to leave home. At 17, he's off to the University of Ingolstadt.
A move his father insisted on, right, to get him out of that bubble.
For the completion of his education, yes. He needed to see the world.
But Victor finds it really hard. He says he feels totally unfitted for the company of strangers.
After that secluded life, I'm not surprised. But at the same time, he is so eager to get out into the world and acquire knowledge.
And that loneliness he feels gets even worse when he meets his first professor, M. Kremp.
Oh, Kremp is just awful. He's described as uncouth, repulsive. He just mocks Victor's reading list.
He calls Agrippa and all the others nonsense.
Just trashes them. And tells Victor he has to start his studies completely over. It almost pushes Victor away from science for good.
So what stopped him? Why doesn't he just walk away right then?
Because of the next professor he meets, the true catalyst, M. Waldman.
The chemistry professor.
Yes, and he's the total opposite of Kremp. He's gentle, he's mild-mannered, and crucially, he doesn't dismiss Victor's passion for the alchemists.
What does he say about them?
He actually defends them. He says modern philosophers are indebted to their zeal, to their ambition.
Ah, so that's the hook.
Yeah.
He doesn't just teach Victor science. He validates Victor's need for glory.
Precisely. He tells Victor that modern scientists have performed miracles. He essentially gives Victor permission to chase that ancient ambition, but with modern tools.
And that changes everything for Victor.
Instantly. Chemistry becomes his sole occupation. He says that meeting decided my future destiny. He becomes maniacal about it, working until the stars disappeared in the light of morning.
Which brings us to Chapter 4, where that intense study just spirals into this dangerous, isolating obsession.
Waldman's influence, combined with his own ambition, leads him to the ultimate question.
Whence did the principle of life proceed?
And to answer that, he realizes he has to study death. He has to completely overturn that protected, careful upbringing.
So he starts spending his time in vaults and charnel houses.
Days and nights just analyzing decay. It's a profound violation of everything he was taught. He's disturbing, as he says, the tremendous secrets of the human frame.
And in doing so, he sacrifices every single one of those domestic values his parents prized. He cuts himself off from everyone.
Total isolation. But this unholy study pays off. Amidst all that darkness, he says, a sudden light broke in upon me.
He discovers the astonishing secret of how to give life to inanimate matter.
And in that moment, he has the one secret which I alone possessed. It's the ultimate fulfillment of that desire for singular glory that started with Agrippa.
But the personal cost is just staggering. The next phase is this relentless, awful toil.
He sets up a solitary workshop of filthy creation at the top of his house.
Not a lab, a workshop.
Right, and he's gathering materials from slaughterhouses, from dissecting rooms. He calls it a resistless and almost frantic impulse. This isn't science, it's madness.
And his body just breaks down. He becomes pale, emaciated.
Suffers from a nervous fever. The pursuit of the secret demands the total sacrifice of himself, physically and mentally, even before the creature is animated.
And chapter 4 doesn't end with some triumphant moment of creation. It ends with the consequences of his isolation.
He's just found wandering the streets, completely terrified. The only thing that brings him back is the unexpected arrival of his friend, Henry Clerval.
Clerval, who represents everything he's left behind: home, friendship, humanity.
Exactly. And Clerval immediately sees how broken Victor is. His arrival is the sudden, painful shock of reality that highlights just how far Victor has fallen.
So if you, the learner, look back at these first 4 chapters, the groundwork Shelley lays is just so meticulous.
It's the perfect storm, isn't it? You have this high-minded Genevan virtue,
which gets completely undermined by this romantic, almost selfish ambition for glory.
and then it gets channeled by the wrong kind of mentorship at university, and it just leads straight to disaster.
Yeah, that's a great point. His shift from hating modern science to mastering it was all because Waldman was nice to him.
Waldman validated his need for greatness. Victor wasn't really driven by scientific curiosity. He was driven by the promise of personal power.
So the sources really show us how quickly a very moral, protected background can just unravel when ambition is completely cut off from any kind of social or moral connection.
He sacrifices everything his family taught him to prize. That workshop of filthy creation is born directly out of that sacrifice.
Which really raises an interesting question, one that Shelley seems to be asking in both versions of the novel.
Right. If his mother brought Elizabeth into the family, specifically to teach him the importance of domestic love,
did Victor basically doom himself the second he chose his secret obsession over every single person in his life?
his isolation literally defined the act of creation itself.
And you have to wonder, if the creature was born from that total isolation, born in that filthy workshop by a creator who had rejected the world, was it destined from its very first breath to reflect that same isolation and to despise the world that had exiled its maker?
We see that in both the 1818 and 1831 editions. Chapters 1 through 4 give us a privileged, bookish Victor and a clear path toward the experiments he'll later regret. But they don't agree on exactly who Elizabeth is, whether she's a cousin by blood or an adopted orphan, which slightly shifts how we read that relationship. As we move on to the creation and the first tragedies in chapters 5 through 8, keep in mind how Victor's upbringing and his early reading help explain what he chooses to do next. Thanks for listening to Chapter by Chapter Classics. If this episode helped you follow the story, follow the show in your podcast app so you don't miss the next chapter. And if you're enjoying this series, please take a moment to rate the podcast or leave a short review. It really helps other readers and students find the show.